I'd like to declare an interest in this debate. Like 1 in 3 households in my constituency of Clapham and Brixton Hill, I rent my home. And so as a renter and an MP who represents a large number of renters, it will come as no surprise that I rise to speak in favour of this legislation, which will bring some important long overdue reforms to provide private renters with decent and secure homes. Crucially, I'm pleased to see the abolition of Section 21 evictions, something that was promised by the party opposite, including in their 2019 manifesto, but they never delivered. Close to 1 million people faced no fault evictions notices in the last Parliament because of their failure, adding to the homelessness crisis we now face. I'm also happy to see measures in this bill that focus on affordability. In my borough of Lambeth, renting a one-bedroom home now costs the average person more than half of their take-home pay. When teachers, rail staff, nurses and other key workers went on strike to call for inflation-matching pay rises, the last government attacked them, called them greedy and rejected their demands. But they shrugged their shoulders as private landlords collected above-inflation rent hikes from some of these same key workers year after year. In recent years, the situation has been particularly pronounced. In March 2024, the ONS reported that monthly rents rose by 9.1%, the highest annual increase recorded since records began in 2015. So I'm glad that this legislation brings some common sense to the situation, ensuring that rent increases can no longer be written into contracts, that landlords will only be able to legally increase rents once a year, and actually protecting tenants from the egregious rent hikes. Also highly positive are the new measures to strengthen enforcement against slum private landlords, extending the decent home standard to the private rental sector and widening council enforcement powers, as well as extending the range of financial penalties available to local authorities to fund enforcement activity. Finally, I'm pleased that this bill legislates for a consultation on improving energy standards in rented homes. The UK has some of the most energy inefficient homes in Europe, with 2.6 million private rented homes falling below minimum energy efficiency standards in England and Wales alone. Almost a quarter of renters live in fuel poverty, the highest rate of any tenure. Now, this bill contains important measures to provide renters with some of the basic security and place some basic responsibility on landlords. However, there is so much more that can be done to strengthen this bill. I'm pleased to see that the government is supporting amendments from my honourable friend, the member for Leeds Central and Headingley, and I'm pleased to be supporting amendments 9, 5 and 6 from my honourable friend, the member for Liverpool Wavertree, which would better protect sitting tenants from unaffordable rent increases. In its current form, the legislation only caps rent increases at market rate, i.e. The prices landlords set. These amendments would instead cap these at CPI or wage growth, whichever is the lowest. Because I'm yet to hear a compelling reason why landlords should see their incomes grow faster than people who actually work for a living. I would also like to place on record my support for the Renters Reform Coalition in their call for a National Rental Affordability Commission to investigate methods to bring down rents relative to incomes. I know there aren't very many members opposite, but in their speeches that they have made, I've heard about homes being talked about almost entirely as assets, forgetting that they are actually homes that people need to live in. So I welcome those amendments that actually remember that people are living in these homes and people have a variety of different circumstances and they should be viewed with compassion. So I welcome and support the amendment, new clause 10, which was put forward by my honourable friend and constituency neighbour, the member for Dulwich and West Norwood, as well as the new clause 9 by the member for Bristol Central on adaptations for disabled people. It's also welcome overall the legislation would make it illegal to discriminate against benefit claimants and families for exactly the same reason. I'd like to see further changes to prevent discrimination, like scrapping right to rent checks and reforming the laws around guarantors more generally. I would like to see the legislation go further on preventing illegal evictions and backdoor evictions too. As the London Renters Union has pointed out, for the many families struggling with housing costs, a 20% rent hike is simply a no-fault eviction under a different name. During my time as an MP, I've seen too many unscrupulous attempts to remove tenants to be unconcerned about a likely increase in illegal evictions as one response to scrapping Section 21. And whilst I welcome new enforcement powers, we have to acknowledge that the financial difficulties that have faced local authorities after 14 years of massive cuts. It's essential that the government ensures local authorities have the resources they need to actually use these enforcement powers. And finally, when it comes to disrepair, Madam Deputy Speaker, tenants should have the right to withhold rent when repairs are not being carried out within appropriate timescales. This happens far too often. Too many renters are paying for a shoddy service and living in awful conditions. Too many renters, young people in particular, face a despairing future of potentially spending a lifetime as private renters and are left living in these dire conditions of extreme disrepair and continue to have to pay their full rental amount each month lest they face eviction. They should have the right to withhold rent in these circumstances, and this bill is the prime place to ensure that. This would support the bill's stated intention of ensuring the decent home standards applies to the private rented sector. And renters more generally have been neglected right across different pieces of legislation we've passed over the years. And if this landmark bill is truly going to reform the rental sector and shift the balance of power to create a more equal relationship between renters and landlords, then I believe that more needs to be done, and I urge the government to adopt these amendments. Thank you.